Hi, my name is Julie Watts, and I'm the social work coordinator here at Langs. Thanks for joining me today as we continue on our journey through the science of happiness. Today, we'll explore one of the 12 happiness increasing activities, savoring life's joys. And my hope for today is to provide you with a brief introduction to positive psychology and the science of happiness. For some of you, this may be a review. And if you haven't had the chance yet to watch the introduction to the science of happiness, I encourage you to watch it on the Langs YouTube page. Additionally, we will be exploring the benefits of savoring life's joys as a happiness increasing activity. And I also will be providing you with a variety of activities that you can implement to try to savor life. Beginning with the history of positive psychology, we need to first understand the history of traditional psychology. And traditional psychology tended to focus on what was wrong with people, tended to want to understand what are the causes and then what are the cures when things go wrong for people. This is an important aspect of understanding our personal psychology or pathology, but it also is only part of the story. And in the 1970s and 80s, researchers and scientists and psychologists began to say, well, what about people who are doing well? There are some people that, despite adverse circumstances in their life, seem to be happier than other people and more resilient to difficult life circumstances. What is it that made those people happy? And in some cases, what is it made those people flourish? What the scientists and the researchers began to look at was what determines happiness. And what they found through their research was that about 50% of our happiness is genetic. And so we are born with a genetic predisposition to happiness. Certain twin studies have demonstrated this. And again, if you go to the Science of Happiness introduction, you get a fair bit more information about this genetic set point. But similar to our eye color or our height, some cases in our weight, we are genetically disposed to a certain level of happiness. What the research then found was that about 10% of our happiness is life circumstances. So we go through ebbs and flows where happy things happen to us and sad things happen to us, and they do affect our happiness. But generally speaking, they don't last, and they only account for about 10% of our happiness. One example might be someone who wins the lottery, and what the research has shown is that generally speaking, that doesn't increase people's overall happiness. Unless, of course, they utilize some of that money to increase their happiness through the next category, and that is intentional activities. So what we know is 40% of our happiness is made up of these happiness intentional activities. We can all be a lot happier if we scrutinized carefully the behaviors and thoughts that very happy people naturally and habitually engage in. We can sort of create or construct our own happiness versus pursuing something. With practice, we can create happiness, and 40% of that is within our control. So as I mentioned, there are 12 happiness increasing activities. You can see them on the slide right now. And this series of workshops will cover each of them in more detail. So today's topic, again, is savoring life's joys. So before we begin, I just want to take a moment to take you back to the introduction where I asked you to consider how happy are you. What we know about happiness is it is somewhat subjective. However, that subjectivity translates from one period of time to another. So if you want to take the next few minutes to just ask yourself the following questions and come up with your score of how happy you are. So question 1 is, in general, I consider myself 1, being not a very happy person, to 7, a very happy person. Question 2, compared with most of my peers, I consider myself 1, less happy, all the way to 7, more happy. And now considering the following statement. Some people are generally very happy. They enjoy life regardless of what is going on, getting the most out of everything. To what extent does this characterization describe you? 1, not at all, or 7, a great deal. And finally, some people are generally not very happy. Although they don't seem depressed, they never seem as happy as they might be. To what extent does this characterization describe you? 1, a great deal, all the way to 7, not at all. To calculate your score, simply take the 4 scores, add them together, and then divide them by 4. And what I encourage you to do is ask yourself these 4 questions at different periods of time as you begin to implement the happiness increasing activities that work for you. On average, people score between 4.5 and 5.5. University students, a little bit below 5. Working adults and older retired people average maybe about 5.6. A score of less than 4 might indicate depression. So if you do score less than 4, I encourage you to reach out to Lang's or identify one of your local mental health service providers. The bottom line is that no matter what your score, you can be happier. So what is savoring life's joys? Well, savoring is described as any thought or behavior that is capable of provoking prolonged and intense joy. So an example might be something as simple as stopping to smell the roses, taking time to relish in an accomplishment. So the ability to savor a positive experience in life is one of the ingredients involved in creating happiness in our own lives. There are many people who will tell you that they appreciate life so much more after they've had a near-death experience, or even when they've had an experience that has been so uncomfortable or painful. And sometimes that change might be permanent, but often it is short-lived. So the interesting thing about savoring is savoring has a past, a present, and a future. So we can savor the past by reminiscing about the good old days. We can think about a summer trip we took with friends, or an event where we perhaps gave birth to our child, or graduated from something special. Savoring in the present is living completely and wholly where you are right now, relishing every moment. So it might be you're having lunch with a friend or going for a walk and really focusing and paying attention to what's happening in that moment. This type of savoring does overflow with the 2 concepts of gratitude and flow, and both of which are happiness increasing activities. As you watch the gratitude and flow sessions, I encourage you to think about the similarities between savoring life's joys and perhaps some of the differences. So savoring the future, it's to imagine and fantasize about an upcoming positive event, to be optimistic about that event. So when I mentioned flow, there is a slight difference between flow and savoring life's joys. And flow requires sort of being immersed in an experience, whereas savoring is sort of stepping outside of it and reviewing it. What we know about people who really savor life is they're found to be less hopeless and more gratified. They're more self-confident and more outgoing. They tend to appreciate the good in life, and they're less depressed and less stressed. So to be successful at savoring life's joys, you need to try to remember an experience in a way that continues to bring you joy long after the event or experience has ended. So, what are some of these savoring strategies? So we'll go through a series of them and describe what they are and then how you might implement them as an activity. So, relishing ordinary experiences. So that's simply taking pleasure in the day-to-day life. And sometimes those are mundane and ordinary activities, but really it's being able to think about what is pleasurable in them. Sometimes we rush through our day, we rush through the routine of having breakfast or brushing our teeth. But do you ever stop and really think about what it is you're experiencing in the moment? So really thinking about the crunch of your toast or the melting butter or jam on your toast. Really experiencing the warmth or the cold. Thinking about when you brush your teeth, the sharp taste of the mint or cinnamon. Thinking about how it cleanses or cleans your teeth as it brushes against it. So just really intentionally relishing some of those ordinary experiences. So next might be savoring and reminiscing with family and friends. So sometimes it is easier to savor when something is shared with a family member or a friend or a coworker. It might have been that you take a trip together or attend a concert or a party together, and then you can really savor and enjoy the experience in the moment. But you also can reminisce by going back and singing a song from the concert or looking at pictures from that trip. And so this idea of savoring and reminiscing with family and friends provides you with contentment and a host of positive emotions. So next might be transporting yourself. And so transporting yourself is the ability to engage in reminiscing in a positive way and allowing your mind to transport yourself to a time and a place. So it might be a place in your past where you went for a walk along a trail and noticing the sun peeking between the trees. It might be a childhood memory of climbing over some rocks or searching for blueberries and tasting them and that crunch and juiciness of those blueberries. The skill of imagination can really help us when we're stressed or feeling down, and this ability to reminisce on a regular basis has shown to increase happiness substantially. So the more vivid the memory, sort of the greater the gain in happy feelings. So it might be to just sit, take a few deep breaths, close your eyes, and think about a positive memory. And really begin to think about the details, the colors, the smells, the sounds. And when we savor life's joys, we can also practice those skills in the very present moment. And the more we practice them in the present moment, the more vivid they come for memories of us, for us in the future. So replaying happy days. So this is the ability to consistently replay happy moments in one's life. And this prolongs and reinforces positive emotions and makes one happier. So for an example, think about one of the happiest days in your life and play the day back in your mind. Don't analyze the details, just enjoy the emotions and the thoughts running through your head the day that you experienced it. And if you practice this for about 8 minutes a day for 3 consecutive days, it can bring about more intense and powerful floods of positive emotions up to 4 weeks later. So the next is celebrating good news. So celebrating good news is a way to savor life's joys. It's really sharing good news with our friends and our family, and it's associated with elevated and satisfying emotions as well as our overall well-being. So make time to enjoy and celebrate life's accomplishments. And the ability to share good news allows us to relish and soak up in the present moment and make connections with other people. And these good news stories don't need to be major events in our life. It might just be that you had a positive day, or you had a great cup of coffee. So be open to beauty and excellence. And this really involves finding the beauty all around us. And this leads to joy and helps us make meaningful connections in life. So take time to really admire an object of beauty or a display of talent. And that can be sometimes something as simple as your child's art and really looking at it as an object of beauty that they're displaying to you. Sometimes it can be difficult to find awe in the otherwise mundane life, but if you really just step back and really look and listen to what nature and life have to offer, you can see the beauty in a flower growing, you can see beauty in a dandelion, or watching how a bee creates their hive, or how the wind rustles through the trees. So next is being mindful. Mindful is a key part of well-being and a clear way to begin to savor life's joys. Being mindful helps you clear your mind and ground you in the present moment. People who develop the habit of mindfulness are more likely to be happy, self-confident, and have greater mental health. They experience positive social relationships and feel stronger physically and mentally. As you explore the happiness increasing activities, the presentation on taking care of your body will explore in more detail this concept of mindfulness and being aware of your own body, learning breathing and relaxation strategies so that you can exist more in the present moment. And living in the present moment enables you to experience the joys and sometimes the hardships of that moment. So next we have taking pleasure in the senses. So indulging in our senses is an important way to promote savoring. So really focusing on the sweetness of a strawberry, or the smell of fresh baked bread, or the beautiful sound of a bird chirping in the trees. So what the science tells us is that people who focus their attention on sensory experiences often find more pleasure in it. So sometimes try treating your meal like a ceremonial occasion, really enjoying every mouthful with no distractions. Try closing your eyes when you're listening to music and really staying absorbed in the experience, and think of nothing else but the piece of music you're listening to. Taking pleasure in senses can take us anywhere in the world, even under some of the worst circumstances. So create a savoring album. So creating a savoring album is a great tool to create and savor memories of positive experiences. You can put in photos of your favorite people, places, and things. You can also put photos of meaningful things, like maybe the child's drawing, or a love note, or a quote, or an article written by your favorite author. And the idea is to look at it from time to time to remind you of all those experiences that bring you joy, especially during times when you need that quick pick-me-up. So savoring with your camera. So many of us know the experience, especially now that we have access to cameras on our phone, of taking way too many photos while we're traveling or experiencing a key moment of life. And sometimes we take so many photos that we actually missed out on the moment. The key is to take photos that help you savor, not to take as many photos as you can. So use your camera to enhance your experience and to improve it. So really focus on something that has meaning and that is beautiful to you, and then perhaps frame the best one. This will make you much more mindful, and you will enjoy that experience much more. So seeking bittersweet experiences. So a bittersweet experience is one of mixed emotions. So it might be one that brings happiness and sadness. So it could be the experience of a vacation where you have great happiness that you're on vacation, perhaps camping, but also that it will end. And that's sort of the way that life is. So when we are mindful about these bittersweet moments or the uncertainty of things, perhaps taking your child to school for the first day, or moving to a new city, starting a new grade, we're likely to appreciate them a little bit more when we know that they have a limited time. And it is important for us to know that good things and bad things all end. And this really helps us sort of say, I'm going to stop in this moment and see what the experience is like. Perhaps smell those roses. So the next is wax nostalgic. So nostalgia is a positive emotion. It is a memory with the pain removed. So it provides us with positive feelings, with a sense of being loved, protected, and it may even help our self-esteem. Nostalgia can be triggered through a conversation with someone. It might be looking at photos. It might be hearing some music, or it might just be reflecting on a wonderful moment from the past. It's important not to compare those feelings of the past to the present, but instead to cherish those memories and look at how they positively enriched and influenced your life. So those are a variety of activities that you can implement to try and begin to savor life's joys. I'd like to summarize by sort of reiterating again that 40% of our happiness is within our control. It's controlled by what we do and what we think. But the reminder that it's an intentional activity and that increasing our happiness requires action. What we practice grows stronger, and practicing any skill requires effort. This is like exercise for your brain. Similar to physical exercise, we start to see changes in our physical body when we practice. When we practice these happiness increasing activities is when we begin to see those changes. But any major life-changing endeavor must be accompanied by considerable sustained effort, and this requires changing habits. And we are hardwired to stick with our habits. We're hardwired for negativity. It's what kept our species surviving for thousands of years. So remembering to be kind to yourself as you engage in these various happiness increasing activities. So in summary, I'd like to encourage you to watch all of the series and continue to come back to see if there are new happiness increasing activities that have been added. So thank you to all of you for your time today, and be happy.